if anything, keep that feeling of apathy, desperation, anger closely, and remember that same feeling when you go to the ballot box in next election. What those who engineered Sheraton move want you to do is for you to feel hopeless and give up.
Yeah.
Because when you don't turn up, when you do not care, when you feel hopeless, they will forever be in power and they will perpetuate the same system which corrupts our moral integrity. However, what they fear the most is that you actually care
And you still care.
and you keep on pushing forward because they know then you are the dagger which will kill them. Right? I mean, not literally, please.
Welcome back to Yamcha Sessions. Today, we have the one and only. Wait, how do...
You just had to do it.
Dude, okay, wait. I need to be like clear, right? How do we address you?
Saddiq.
Just Saddiq.
Yeah.
Saddiq, yeah.
Okay.
Bro can, Saddiq can.
Yeah.
Side,
This
okay.
is Yamcha session lah. Don't make this not parliament. You don't have to make it formal.
Yes.
Bro, sure, bro.
Bro.
Okay. So I know we asked this before the podcast.
Yep.
But I'm gonna ask you again on camera. Are we allowed to say or not say anything on this podcast?
You're allowed to say anything. You're allowed to ask me anything. I will also find a way. If it's a really tough question, I'll find a way to wriggle myself out of the question lah.
There you go lah. That's the debater right here lah.
There you go.
That's the debater.
Years of debating have taught me that.
Okay, fantastic. We did a bit of research on you, background. You rejected like a couple of scholarships, right?
Yes.
From Oxford, and then the other one is
Chevening.
Yep.
Yeah, to pursue politics. But when did the interest in politics begin?
Ayo.
Ayo, nice.
You got time, bro. Don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, so the genuine interest in frontline politics was forced on me lah. To be
You're
honest.
forced upon you.
Okay, let me explain why. So I've always wanted to be a public policy researcher. I love research work, but never in the front lines, more at the back, you know. So
Okay.
I was interning with a minister before. Now she's the Minister of Tourism. Then she was a Minister of Law, and then ended up working for her for a bit. I was also the researcher for the Chief Minister of Johor, Khalid Nordin then, in a think tank which is under him. So I've always loved the research world. However, when I was trusted into frontline politics, I've always been passionate in teaching.
Oh, okay.
So then while I was working for them, I was also a debate trainer in IIUM.
I see.
And also a part-time lecturer. However, when I started to criticize the government in 2015, 2016 openly, immediately I lost my job as a lecturer, as a researcher, as a debate trainer. And what was worse is that the students who I were training, which were about to represent Malaysia on a world scale, were disallowed to represent Malaysia because I was their trainer. So to me, that's the red line. When you disturb, and mind you, I've always wanted to just teach, leave me alone, I will criticize constructively. However, when that happened, what else can I do, right? Do I just give up? No. I'll fight them.
Wait, what did the students had to do with any of this?
Exactly. They were, and like one of them is a Bangladeshi, one of them is like an Afghan, and like one more is a Malaysian. They had nothing to do with politics, but because I was their trainer and part-time lecturer then, so things got complicated.
Bro, what? Their blood and tears to prepare for the tournament and just gone. Not fair.
Dude, that wasn't on the Wikipedia page, bro.
I don't think that's meant to be placed on the Wikipedia page.
Dude, I was like thinking, why? Okay, so I'm assuming it's because of the debate skills you had also, and then because of this incident, you're like, I gotta use what I know to make a change.
Of course, because one thing about debating, right? I mean, you get very passionate, you're forced to read up a lot, you must be a global citizen. However, the extent of your change-making position is very limited. Yeah, you get to argue within the confinement of a debate room, debate competition, people listen to you.
True.
But that's it. The best thing is when you're able to translate that idealism into concrete public policy making.
Yes.
And that's where you see what you argue, what you believe in, actually taking place in your country in the legislative efforts which will take place. So that's the best thing ever.
Congrats on the Undi 18 thing also.
Thank you.
Dude, I know. I was listening to that podcast last night as well. Wow. After I hear all that, I'm like, damn, that's a lot of work, bro.
Yeah, but you still got two more criteria to fulfill for it, right?
The policies, but it comes together with it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think either way, it will be good for Malaysia. I mean, Undi 18 is by far the largest, strongest, loudest political earthquake in Malaysia's future.
For sure.
because I mean, who'd have expected that instantly after 2018 there will be 5.8 million young voters in the electoral roll. So if you plus young voters who are already registered and the new ones, you already make up the immediate majority. So youth issues will never ever be sidelined again. And any politician, party, individual who choose to sideline the voices of young people, they'll be ridiculously scared because they will be outvoted in no time.
100%.
Also, I think nowadays young voters, actually young people are more aware because of social media, because of the news, and they're more aware on looking at news and perceiving it differently. Because I think in the past you would just take it for word, right?
You're right.
But I think nowadays it's kind of like, I gotta watch like 4 different types of outlets before I understand, and then I make my own perception. So I think it's a very big difference compared to last time.
And also, if you open Facebook, all the news of Malaysia is literally right there.
And one thing which is good in Malaysia, is weird but it's good, is that we've found a way to make political news fun. So that's why, for an example,
kuasiswa.
I mean, everything.
Is it the bro don't like that?
That as well. Obviously, that's one. Kuasiswa by making art as a form of expression. Right. But at the same time, because back then we don't televise a lot of the debates in Parliament, and now it's everywhere on Twitter, Facebook. They'll shorten it. So, for example, yesterday you hear a past senator talking about how K-pop has caused a lot of suicide cases in Malaysia. And then this kind of stories go viral very quickly. So in my WhatsApp groups, and this is like my WhatsApp group, a lot of old people will mention what WhatsApp group that is. They all started talking about this. I'm like, wow, that means like news like this, which you don't expect people to talk about it. People read it, people watch it, and it's really fun and interesting. Obviously, it's a double-edged sword because it makes politicians look like damn comedians occasionally, where people laugh as a point to laugh at. But on the other hand, it humanizes politics. So people get to know it a lot more. They know the issues, and we get to move forward.
It's a Malaysian thing for sure.
But do you feel social media sort of just feeds you information that reinforces your existing beliefs?
That's definitely the echo chamber is there, right? Especially for social media like Facebook, right? Because what your friend shares, what will be out, what you like will most likely come up again. So that echo chamber is there. But that echo chamber is just reflective of society. Let's say we now live in a world without social media. And look at friends around you. Most likely these are people who believe in what you believe in.
True.
It's the same echo chamber, but social media magnifies it. However, in social media, because the number is much, much, much bigger, you're more likely to encounter points which are against you than in real life, where your circle is much, much smaller and tighter. So it's always a comparison.
Do you feel the younger demographic in your more suburban areas of Malaysia? Because I think people who live in the Klang Valley typically assume that the whole of Malaysia is the Klang Valley, when that's just not the truth.
Okay, this is where I will say something which is very unpopular in politics, but it's the reality. In Malaysia, Klang Valley defines Malaysian politics. Why? While in Selangor and KL, there are a limited number of seats, but the majority of Malaysian voters actually live, work, study in urban areas. They'll only just end back voting in rural and suburban heartlands. I mean, to put it simply, I'm here, I rent a place here, but I'll end up voting in Muar and also in Pulai, my family, right? My brothers, sisters are here, working here, but they'll end up voting in Johor. And a lot of my friends around me, I mean, you met up Jack, my officer, he's here, but he's voting in Muar. If you just do a very simple survey among your friends who are staying here, call them, hey bro, where will you end up voting? Oh, I vote in Baling lah. Yeah, I vote in Kota Baru.
But they all reside here.
So to me, that's good, right? Because in a way, it democratizes voices of people. It also ensures that information dissemination is done well because they're in places where internet is great. And when they go back to see their parents and grandparents, that's where actual discussion takes place, right? Where you want to convince your parents will try to convince you. And there's heated but constructive debate. And that's great for Malaysian politics.
At least it's conversation, rather
heated
than
for sure, though.
Heated lah. No, when you go,
if you've ever tried convincing your parents of anything, it's not exactly the easiest thing.
Bro, every day I have a debate at my house, bro. Try living with an Indian mom, bro. You know, last side, you think you can go against a debate with Indian parents?
Oh, that one maybe slightly tougher.
Tougher lah, bro.
Hey, that one, you have to strategize lah. Strategize your father. You can't win your mom over, win your father. You can't win your father over, win over your grandmother, grandfather.
Tactics.
Always a play. Always a play.
So tactics. Okay, I need to go back to the question, right? What were you doing prior to politics, apart from the teaching and apart from the debate training?
So I've always loved teaching. So when they took away the opportunities for me to teach in Malaysia, so then I could no longer become a debate trainer, part-time lecturer, researcher. But I was still lucky enough because I've built a decent portfolio to teach abroad.
Oh,
so then
okay.
every year I'll fly to Qatar about 2 or 3 times. I'll go to the UK in November for 3 weeks. I'll go to China, Taiwan. So by the end of my teaching career, before I joined full-time politics, I was privileged enough to be able to teach in more than 25 countries, or to debate in more than 25 countries. And to me, that has left a strong impression on me because when I went there, because I don't come from a luxurious family, so everything I had to pay on my own. And when I went there, you know, really, I don't even know who these people are. For example, when I went to Pakistan, I've never met with any one of them in life. They invited me to go and teach there and to run an international debating competition there. I just went. I mean, took out my bag.
Dude,
Only told my mom when I was on the plane, because if I had told my mom before,
bro.
she would
Confirm say
why,
no.
bro.
confirm say no.
Strategy.
Confirm.
It's not about permission, it's forgiveness.
Correct. And mind you, right before my flight, there was a bombing in Lahore, the city which I was visiting.
Oh my
Mother panic,
lord.
bro.
Yeah,
Your
so
mum.
obviously, so only when I was in the flight, I was calling my mum, how's everything? And I was like, where are you at? In the flight. Oh, flight where? Kedah, Penang, to Pakistan. I was like, what?
Dude, how old were you, bro?
Then I was, I think, 21, 22.
Wait, what? 21,
God.
you just
Insane.
Qatar, bro.
My
No lah,
God.
because I graduated from military school. So, but after graduation, my mom started to trust me a lot more.
Okay.
So I could fly around on my own. But it was an amazing experience because I had no connections there. Went there, taught the debaters there. Some of them were sons and daughters of generals, and then they brought me to see their fathers and mothers, and we started building good ties which last until today. And that's where I think it has helped me to a great extent to at least learn different cultures.
Oh, I see.
And to meet up with
for sure.
very interesting people with different stories, and has made me who I am today.
So, are you telling me if you can just call a general right now, like, hey bro, I need an army right now? Yeah, that's somehow what possible, is
I
it?
don't know whether it works.
Bro, I want Malaysia to be a strong democracy, not a dictatorship lah.
Bro, generals, bro, when you enter the house, right, were there guns and stuff?
No lah.
Sorry, bro, I have this bad social media
No
image in my
lah.
mind right now.
But to
lah,
me,
okay?
I think that's crazy though. Like you get to travel so many countries. That means your worldview must be so open. You must have seen everything. I mean, most things compared to a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of the typical average Malaysian.
And to be honest, that's the best time of my life, you know. People told me like, oh my god, you joined politics so early, you lost your childhood, you lost everything. No, my childhood was in university.
That's
I forced myself to do everything universities, right? When I was in my first year, I made a deal with my university. If I'm able to break Asia's record, they will hire me as a lecturer to be the youngest lecturer, because if not, there's a criteria. You need to have a degree, master's,
Yes.
PhD. And obviously, to their surprise, we broke the record, and then immediately they had to hire me the second year.
Make the promise already, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So then I already had a decent income. But then after that, I also made another deal with the university because I wanted Malaysia to be one of the best universities in the world when it comes to debating, therefore taking on Oxford, Cambridge and the like. But I said, then you have to give me some flexibility to train, to network,
Yeah.
to travel abroad.
Yeah.
Without using university's money, they will pay because they will want me there. And the university gave me flexibility. So in the end, I think the timeline I spent in university, let's say a semester is about 5 months.
Yeah.
I think 3 of the months I'll be abroad.
Wow.
Right? But I'll make sure that my grades are good because, you know, Asian parenting, grades not good, they'll lock you up at home now.
That's a difficult balance to strike, man.
Yeah.
You gotta. Oh my.
But debating forces you to become a very disciplined reader,
True.
a disciplined person, because if you are from Malaysia, Malaysia is an English is second language country, right? You're going up against those Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard,
First
Sydney,
language.
who are like
English
the
man.
best, and
Yeah,
not just
the best
when
of
it
the
comes to
best.
English. They've started debating since
like
they were
3.
like 6. Okay, 3 years like too much lah. 6, 7 years old. So they are.
birth.
They are very fluent speakers. They are global citizens. They know issues really closely.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
what we lack in early development, we had to catch up. But one thing Malaysians have, once they put their mind to something, we will bloody take a sledgehammer and break every single wall in front of us if need be.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the end, that's why it's
True.
not just me. Many juniors after me kept on breaking records after records. And without people knowing, in the global debating scene, at one point in time, Malaysia was ranked second in the world.
Second in the world.
Second.
Who's
Wow.
first, bro?
Wait,
At
who's
that
first?
point in time, it was either Harvard or Oxford.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No
we were
surprise.
second in the world. And that was when I was the chief adjudicator of that global debate championship. And the team was a team from UITM.
Wow.
Right? And they were second in the world. And it's not like you're mighty poor and you can't cheat debating.
How
right?
you
Okay, okay,
debate?
okay.
Yeah, and
Cannot,
they were
bro.
amazing, right? And one tournament after another, we just kept on breaking records till the point today Malaysia will always be in a global debate scene.
Wait, so you're telling me after achieving all of these records, they took it away just because of some of your...
I remember one of the most painful parts. Obviously, they can't strip it away because it's given by the international body.
Correct.
Yeah, but I remember, I think this was during my fourth or fifth year in university. Sorry, fourth year. I was about to graduate then. I was in Cambridge because Cambridge appointed me as the chief educator for their intervarsities. So when I was in Cambridge, then I was already in politics. I remember suddenly my mum calling me up early in the morning. I think it was 3 a.m. in Malaysia, panicking, saying, "Hey, there are police in front of the house." I said, "Huh? Why?" They said, "Oh, they're looking for you." I'm like, "What the hell did I do?" Right? I'm like, and then I was telling them, "How can they? Why do they waste time? They go to my Instagram. They already know I'm abroad, right? So I can teleport UK and Malaysia." And I said, "Oh, you're about to be charged under the Sedition Act for some of your writings." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So then I was in the UK and I was about to attend my convocation ceremony. I graduated from law school. I was waiting for so long and all my batchmates already received their letter to attend the graduation. I didn't. So I'm like, what the hell is going on? Mind you, this is a university which I worked ridiculously hard to bring their name up, where we broke Malaysia's record, Asia's record, world record, and then we did so much things together. But then suddenly I'm immediately an outcast and ashamed to the university because of politics. And I couldn't attend my convocation.
You couldn't attend the convocation?
So in the end, I didn't attend my convocation.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's okay because once I came back from the UK, my mum, I don't know how, I think she illegally got the convocation rope out. So immediately when I got out of the departure hall, so I saw all my friends there with the rope.
Oh, that's
took
nice.
a photo, wear it. So my convocation was at the airport. But what a lot of people didn't know is that in actuality, the police should have picked me up at the airport. But I contacted the police before. I said, "Hey, gentleman's agreement, don't worry, I'm not going to run away. I'm coming back home for a reason. So let my mum and friends have their time with me."
Right.
Immediately after that so-called mini convocation, I'll go to the balai station. So yeah, one thing led to another.
So if I look up those pictures,
Is there?
Yeah, I can see in your eyes that after this I'm going balai lah.
True.
Very effective. The police in the wrong reason.
Yeah.
But what was the sentence that you mentioned that caused you to get into trouble?
Then I was, so I remember when I was in the UK, it came at a time where a particular royalty came out with a very strong statement saying that freedom of expression, especially in a particular state, should not extend to protesting peacefully on the streets. So then I wrote a letter, but I really wrote it formally by using bahasa istana, the royal
Like
language.
beliau and all that.
Patik, mohon maaf, patik ingin sampaikan pandangan, mohon tuanku kenankan masa, all this kind of stuff. And I was very clear, even I said, this Tuanku is great when it comes to multiracialism, moderation, wanting to unite the state, which strength is multiracialism and
all
moderation.
the positives.
All of that. It's just that the final paragraph I said, have a patik berbeza pendapat, which is just like, I have a slight disagreement. According to our constitution, this is something which is allowed. Freedom of expression is a part of our constitution and a part of the Malaysian identity.
Yeah.
And this is something which we should uphold. That's it, right? And I honestly do not blame the royalty. I believe it was the government then, because they just wanted to find an opportunity to put me behind bars.
Sure.
And they thought sedition is very easy, right? Once you get charged, you can get convicted the most flimsiest of reasons because it's very vague. The wording alone is very vague.
And they can find meaning in any way.
Exactly. So, and they don't need to look at intention. Because usually when you look at criminal action, it must be mens rea and actus reus, right? So this one, they may preclude the intention, they just want to focus on the outcome. So when that happened, I remember it was quite painful. It was quite painful then because I was actually very much in support of a lot of the statements released by the royal house, because there were a lot of things which I thought were very progressive for Malaysia. So that's when I found out it's not them, it's the government, and because the IGP, the head of the police, then did a press conference saying that I'm going to be charged and I'm going to be investigated on this. So when I got back, suddenly one of the family members of the royal houses contacted me and put me in touch with the Sultan, and to my surprise, he wasn't. I mean, Tuanku was fine. He was actually very relaxed and cool, very calm. So that's when I found out It's not the royal
it's not
house.
yours.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
someone else.
Side job, bro. This
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Wow.
So that's why I've learned when I'm to interact or face confrontations like this, we cannot be quick to judge, but it's my job to obviously find ways to build stronger bridges. Yeah.
God damn.
That's
He writes
savage.
so much good stuff. However, okay, salah. And then
I feel this is a very common theme in politics, right?
Yeah.
They will use any form of leverage they can find, even if it's not necessarily
Of course.
relatable,
Yeah.
right, or has any relevance.
Yeah.
How does that impact your general life? Because you're a regular guy too, right? You want to live your own life,
Just like
But
McD, bro.
do you always have to keep in mind that
course.
that you're walking on thin ice?
Yeah. I mean, back then I'd love to just say, no, I don't care. It's my life. I can do what I want. But
Oh, man.
Malaysia is not ready for that. That I can tell you. Malaysia is definitely not ready for that. So that's why you have to learn how to pick your battles, right? And in politics, sacrifices are necessary. If you're not willing to make it, then don't join it, right? But I'm very happy to see that after one generation to another, the barriers one by one are being taken down.
Yeah.
Right? So now it's much easier for you to be yourself. Malaysians are a lot
sure.
more open-minded, a lot more moderate. While there are still a lot of sacrifices, but it's much, much easier than before. So I think how it has impacted my life. I'm very conscious of every single action which I do,
Right.
where I go, who I meet. However, I try my best to still maintain my private life.
Must be so tiring.
Yeah. But once it's tiring at the beginning, now you get used to it.
Did you know what you were signing up for when you were thrusted into frontline
no.
politics?
Definitely not.
Oh,
I told you at
no.
first, really, when I just wrote that letter or when I criticized the government, then, I mean, I don't know what those in government thought, like, oh, suddenly I'm going to join politics. No, it's literally, I'm unhappy with what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Like, that's it. It's not like
that complicated.
Yeah, it's not like I'm scheming for something. But I think when they went overboard, I think that signals how bad Malaysian democracy and how ruptured it was, and it required an overhaul in order for actions like this to never take place. And that's why when I was part of government, when there were lecturers who spoke up against government, despite some things being clearly based on fake news, and when the Ministry of Education wanted to take action, I defended the person, even though the person was very much aligned to pass an opposition party. When they were young UMNO members who were students abroad with scholarships and were about to be taken action because they were writing articles, statements against government, I defended them because that's the beauty of Malaysian politics. We have to learn how to celebrate, to agree to disagree. Right? Not every disagreement is done in a very vicious sense in wanting to put you behind bars.
Yeah,
right?
man.
Because
True.
if I do this to you,
No different.
5 years from now, you're in power, you do this to me, and then I come back to power, it becomes a vicious cycle. And that never ends. If anything, we need to change the way we do politics in Malaysia, overhaul it once and for all, and get more young, revitalized faces in and reset Malaysian politics.
I think nowadays, actually, like our generation, they are not so keen on battling the big battle. I think we kind of know there are a lot of nuances behind every single argument anyway. So I don't know lah. It's like, you watch football, right?
Yep.
Last time, if you watch like Liverpool against
Yep.
Man United, it's like a heated rivalry. And then if you look at the stadiums, people are like fighting each other. But nowadays, you don't really see that.
Yep, that's
It's
true.
it's a change of sorts. And I think it's more of, let's just have the discussion. And then I think I'm a Man United supporter, right? I'll be like, Man United playing quite shit right now. So I'll be easy to admit that,
I don't know. I think it's just how
Then
the
what if
youth-
you come to my house, you're a Liverpool supporter, you watch it.
wait,
If you make fun of Man United, I'll unleash my two cats to
Relax,
scratch
bro.
you.
we are Man United fans as well. Take it easy.
We are all Man United fans, bro. Except him, he's a Barca fan. It's just that
Sesat lah.
Hey, bro,
Wrong
don't
ajaran
Now it's a
salah.
very tough time for us. Just calm down.
we all have tough times, bro.
We all have tough time.
Yeah.
Y'all lucky y'all got Ronaldo now only.
But it's just that I think nowadays people are just okay to have that conversation compared to last time where they have to win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's different. There's a bit of a
All I
change.
know is these people who tried to put him in lockup, instead of trying to extinguish a flame, they raised a huge flame, bro.
Yes,
in a
but
way.
that letter, I feel now that I know about it, because I didn't know about it.
What was that, bro? There's nothing.
Compared to nowadays, where you see people like Kwasiswa who do art,
Yeah.
who do poetry, who do like readings of criticizing government, I think maybe perhaps someone needed to take that big step for people to follow. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And
So
that's why I
people
say,
speak up.
at times there will be sacrifices, but it's through the moral courage of people like Kwasa Siswa keeps on illustrating public opinions via art. that's where you'll have many others who will dare to do the same.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm very sure that if he were to be convicted, there will be many Malaysians who will rise up and come to his defense.
Confirm.
100%.
So it's fine. I think Malaysian society has matured to a great extent.
Yeah.
And if oppressive acts like this take place, the
People see.
Malaysians will respond back even louder and stronger.
Yeah.
You know, talking about the new generation now, right? So, seeing the current political landscape and the recent change of the government, what are you and I would say maybe the current government are doing to empower the youth to make them better?
Yeah. I've always been a fan of bipartisanship. Bipartisanship in Malaysia is still a new concept where you work across the aisle, meet up with one another, heatedly disagree when there's an issue, but identify common grounds where we can work in the interest of the people. I remember when I was serving the ministry, I proposed a constitutional amendment to reduce voting age from 21 to 18.
Yep.
Obviously, government couldn't do it then because we didn't have 2/3 majority.
Yeah.
But if you work within a conventional political landscape, you say, okay, we can't do it, therefore, let's give up, let's find something else. But this is new politics, right? Yeah, we can't do it now based on our support. We get opposition support. And we have to work and negotiate and be a diplomat in...
You have to find common ground.
Yeah, in striking that common ground. I remember then there was a lot of skepticism because before I tabled that constitutional amendment, there was another senior minister who tried to pursue an even less controversial constitutional amendment but didn't get opposition support. But I learned from it because, I mean, you cannot expect opposition to just suddenly support you and hug you and say, "Wow, very good."
They will look very wishy-washy. Right?
Yeah, so you have to engage them. Instead of waiting for them to engage us, I as a minister went to see them, went to their houses, saw their family members, know their issues, know what they want, know what their needs are. And then after meeting up with them personally, then after that, I meet up with all their officers, colleagues, MPs around them. Only then I meet up with the chief ministers, with the presidents of parties, and then after that, only after all this informal process, only then do I call for a formal briefing and meeting with opposition parties. So that by the time I reach the meeting, I already know what they want, where they are at, what are their disagreements, what's the common ground, where are the points, what are the flash points where there may be a breakup. So I think that process is an interesting part of democracy which hasn't been fully explored. And again, to our surprise, obviously then they ask, okay, we want 2 more amendments, we want this assurance, we want to do the joint PC together, we want you to remove your bill and table another bill. I did all of that, right? Even I remember in government, they said, what, you are humiliating yourself, they will go to backstab you at the end, you are withdrawing your bill, and in the end, that's a signal of weakness and failure. I said, you can say whatever you want, I will deliver the outcome. So forget all the noise. If I deliver the outcome, stick with me. Right? Just stick with me. And to be fair, then the Prime Minister and Cabinet stood by my side. And by the time voting day comes, for the very first time in Malaysia's history, we got through 3 constitutional amendments in one day, which will effectively power 7.8 million young voters who were disenfranchised, disallowed to vote before. How does this affect your question?
Yes.
Because when you have... So currently already 5.8 million.
Yeah.
Every year there's about 500,000 young people brought into the electoral roll. So 4 years combined 7.8 million.
Yeah.
That 7.8 million is ridiculously huge. I mean, just to show how big it is, last election there were 14 million voters.
That's like half. Wow, that's
Exactly.
a 50%
So now you
uptake.
plus 7.8. So can you imagine how scared the old politicians are now?
Yeah.
Because
Because
if
all the
they
youth are in.
fail to represent the voices of young people and they still bring old politics in, they will be removed in no time.
Or they'll be called out clearly
Exactly.
because everybody now can vote, so they want to know what they're voting for.
Yeah.
So they'll be more attuned to
He's gone.
politics. Yeah.
And the beautiful part about young voters, they're not blindly loyal to any party leader. They can change very quickly. Some people may say that's weakness. I think that's a strength because it keeps all of us on our toes. And we witnessed it. Last election, I remember before election, all the polling houses said young people would not turn up to vote. In the end, they were the ones queuing up for hours.
Everybody insta their finger, bro.
Exactly.
All finger, bro.
That was all of us, bro.
Right then, that's all fingering in one way.
Correct.
So then, after we formed government, I think there were some parts which we failed, and me as well, being part of government, where we didn't deliver. And during the by-elections, young people, the tide turned completely against us. Right, but that's beautiful because it shows that young people are so on their toes. They know what's going on. they follow the news well, and if you fail to represent your voices, they will vote against you despite voting in support of you.
They're quite critical. Very critical.
I'm telling you, the speed on where news travels, right, is so fast. Like you have your WhatsApp group, and then
I mean, you can debate that. Yes, they can be critical, but they can also be vengeful. Like if you look at the American politicals, you look at how Trump was elected. It's quite like vindictive, bro. It's like
There's a line.
like screw the establishment. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
You know, so it depends. But I get the point where I think a lot of people are more in tune. You got to give benefit of the doubt as well. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, don't play around with the young kids nowadays, man.
Next question. Racial and religious discrimination is one of the biggest problems in Malaysia, right? But are we doing anything about it? Like in terms of education, in terms of like influence, power, I don't know.
Yeah, man.
I feel like it's a constant conversation that we have, you know.
I honestly don't think we are doing enough. Right? To say that we're not doing anything, obviously we're doing something, but is that something enough? No. Right? And if anything, Malaysia's strength is in our diversity.
Exactly.
And anyone who views diversity and multiracialism as a liability is the antithesis of the Malaysian united spirit. Because and that's why, I mean, it's not just on the more extreme end when people call each other, oh, you are pendatang, you are not, which is clearly outdated,
Apu
ridiculous, bangang lah, right? It's ridiculous. But now, that group is getting smaller and smaller, but it's getting more subconscious, right? Oh, I cannot stay in the same house as a Chinese student because China they eat babi lah. And then I cannot stay Indian lah. They minum banyak sangat. I cannot. Right. So and people no longer dare to say openly, but it's very subconscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when it's subconscious, it's harder to detect. Therefore, actions come from it. Right. So in a way, I think the only way to change that is for genuine integration, genuine discourse, genuine assimilation together since young. Right?
Like education.
So that's what we were saying. So
That's why I need to grow up with multiracial people.
So sekolah kebangsaan lah.
But if you look today, and this is the painful part, right? And that's why in order for us to reform race relations, it is also about making tough but necessary changes in the education sector. For example, the easy thing to do for Malay Party is to just say, ini semua sekolah vernacular, sekolah Cina, sekolah India. Very easy, it's convenient.
Very easy.
Diorang boleh masuk sekolah bahasa, diorang tak nak, diorang jauhkan diri daripada kita. So kalau kita macam ni, bukan salah kita. Very easy. But they keep on forgetting that now, even a lot of Malay middle class parents are sending their children to vernacular schools. Why? And it's a crazy uptake. Because the quality of primary school and secondary school are largely affected because of the over-politicizing of it. Right? You see, if you look in Singapore teaches maths 2 times more than us.
Teachers what, sorry?
Maths, subject maths.
I see.
In terms of contact hours, almost 2 times more than us. English, a lot more than us.
Yeah.
All the moral, civic, religious-based subjects are a lot more optional or done after school hours. So school hours, you focus on these core key subjects to the point that even Chinese and Indian parents, all Malaysians want to go to primary school, secondary school, because that is the best school to go to. Right? But when government keeps on shifting, once we teach English, maths and science, and after that, no, cannot. I cannot. That's why I see a lot of my friends, parents, Chinese, Indian parents, pull out their kids because they say, back then it was in English.
That is BN.
Now
it's back
you
in
keep
BN.
on changing because of politics, and now it's getting a lot more religious. That's okay lah. We'll pick the other choice. And who are we to judge? Because it is our failure as public policy makers to do that. And the biggest irony behind it, those who politicize, kena bahasa kebangsaan, if not, tak boleh guna bahasa penjajah. You ask all these politicians, ministers, where they send their children to, bloody private and international schools. So when they tell me this, I get so pissed off because in reality, what you're doing, it's not the fault of racism. It's not a fault of Cina, Melayu, India, Iban, Kadazan. In reality, that it is a class issue. The elites, the Malay elites who go to international school, private school, and speak very good English, right networking, will always be at the top.
Right?
And then they keep the problem.
Exactly.
Because
systemic issue.
So that's a very big issue. So I think all these things are intertwined to one another. Education reforms being tough but needed. If not, we will forever be a country which is trapped in mediocrity and complacency. And at the same time, obviously, genuine integration on the ground.
On a completely side note, this is a follow-up question, right? Do you think it's better if you just implement a specific language that is like, for example, English? I know Malay is currently our main first language. Right?
Pakatan.
But if you look at the whole of Southeast Asia, only Singapore and Malaysia are the ones that deal very strictly in English when it comes to writing invoices, writing reports, and all that.
Yep.
Don't you think it's time that we just kind of make Malay, Mandarin, and maybe Tamil as a secondary language, something like what Singapore does? Because that way it kind of unites us, right? It's not so biased towards.
If it's up to me, the ideal position is for all Malaysians to be trilingual, minimum.
Right.
Yes.
They must be trilingual.
Yeah.
English is a must, Malay is a must, and then pick,
Pick a random one.
right?
Yeah.
Mandarin, Tamil, you can learn Cantonese, you can
Whatever.
learn French, minimum. Because many studies have shown the more languages you learn, the more of a critical thinker you are, the
Yeah.
more of a faster learner you are, the more how that enlightens your mind. So all of that, the study on
comes
that
with
is
it.
fairly clear. But two, most importantly, the connection, the bonds, the networking which you will build is priceless, and
Yeah,
you no
man.
longer feel disengaged from one community, because when you can speak their language and
You
you
feel
can communicate,
connected.
That's
feel
right, that's right.
connected. In the end, that's where you feel that you are truly one family. And to me, that should be the ideal goal of Malaysian education.
We don't even speak Mandarin. It's quite sad.
I speak
really?
Mandarin.
I forced my whole team, now it's our third class, to join a Mandarin class. It's like 3 weeks
Goddamn.
ago, yeah.
Nice. Where's Jack?
nice.
Jack?
Hi.
Ni hao ma?
It's objectively tough language.
It's a tough
You know,
language.
Talking
man.
about the racial, right? Because my fiance is a Chinese. All right, so eventually I'm going to make beautiful and handsome, good-looking babies, right? Okay? Just putting it there. Right? But I'm a little bit fearful of what is going to happen when they're a kid.
Yeah.
Whether or not the people were like, hey, why are you dark but you're Chinese? Or maybe, hey, you're Chinese, but why you don't speak Chinese? Or you're Indian. I'm very fearful of what's going to happen to that. And I wouldn't know how do I tackle that situation, you know? So, I know you're trying your best, right, bro? But how do you see in the recent coming change? I'm giving you a timeline. 3 years from now, I'll be my first baby. You think?
I hope your fiance knows this. All pressure on her.
But I'm very fearful because Nalina also posted a status a few days ago about the fact that she's Chindian and people are calling her in between of those. And she shared that, and it gave me some sort of fear. Because if
Are they going to take Dan line?
I don't know.
There you go. Right.
So these are just things that I'm very fearful of, and I think as a parent it's very stressful, and especially for kids, if they were to suffer this kind of things when they're young, how will it affect their growing and everything, you know?
That's why I believe I'm the biggest fan of confusing the hell out of Malaysians to the point that people don't know, you Melayu or you Cina, India, tapi muka semua campur. When we normalize that, then you cannot be pissed off, right? I mean, like, you are
100%.
truly... So
100%.
if anything, there should be a lot more. And interracial marriages are one of the best ways to forge long-term unity, because it's not just among you and your wife, it's the family members, friends, circle, all together knowing it. So if you look at countries where they incentivize and encourage interracial marriage, that's where genuine unity comes in. Whether Malaysia will reach that path, I think is slightly more complicated, will take slightly more time. But whether Malaysians will accept it now, I think the vast majority do. There will be pockets who don't. There will be pockets who will make like some snide remarks. However, I believe a true Malaysian friend will challenge any of the other friends who will say, will judge
For sure.
your newborn.
So you got us, bro.
Yeah.
Us, bro,
exactly,
okay?
yeah.
Self-defense. So it's just like, if you can't convince the enemy, you confuse the enemy.
Wow.
That's the statement right here going on.
Guy. Okay.
Let's go to the next
Actually,
one.
on the topic of the racial divide, right? What's your take on Bumi rights?
Sorry to interrupt you midway during this amazing podcast. We would like to thank the amazing Patreon members. If you guys are interested in supporting the podcast, hit the link in the description below, and then you can support us by donating in any way you can. Any help is greatly appreciated. These fellow Patreons below, thank you so much. This podcast would not be where it is today without you all. This podcast is also brought to you by Fetch Malaysia. Healthy, local, and convenient. They have healthy pet food. They are a local business, and they also work with local businesses, and they are a convenient subscription service. So if you want your pet food delivered to you with free delivery, check out FETCHMY. Check out with Fetch My for free delivery. The link is also in the description below. If you guys have any guests that you feel that are super interesting and you have the contact, let us know in the Instagram DMs, and then we can figure things out. If you are up for a collaboration, whether you want to feature your brand here in some way, we can also figure it out. Just hit us up in the DMs and we will find a way to make things work. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the podcast. Love you long time. Peace.
On the topic of the racial divide, right? What's your take on Bumi rights? It's something that's so fundamentally rooted in who we are as a country, but from I think a lot of people's views, especially the minority, it's a structural form of racism. It's very blatant.
So if you look, I'm a fan of the federal constitution, and the federal constitution kept it general for a reason. Why? So when post-independence, if you look, it came at a point where there was structural inequality. And if you look at our public universities, you look at the records of UM, then there were only about 2 or 3 Malay students who could even enter engineering to take up medic. It was very minimal. So when there were positive discrimination implemented in the 1970s, it was meant to address that specific issue. It's never meant to become an issue of I am more supreme than you, Malay supremacy.
Right. Yeah.
Instead, it is a policy to equalize the playing field, and after a timeline, it must be reviewed.
Yeah,
and that's why when Tun Abdul Razak, who came out of NEP, there was a timeline where it's supposed to be reviewed.
Oh, there was a timeline.
There was a timeline. If you read the original document.
The timeline, bro.
Right? So obviously the discussion shifted completely. Then I think because of politics and to empower their base of voters, then it became a political issue. So to me, the best way to address it is to look purely on an issue of data and policy, because data and policy is the best way to strike that balance.
Yeah.
Right? Because for us to simply argue, let's remove Mara, Felda, Felkra, Tabung Haji, you'll get riots on the streets immediately.
Right.
But if you ask Chinese Indian families, should we give scholarship to this anak nelayan who's very poor but who does quite well in his education?
Yes.
Obviously they say yes. But if you ask that Chinese family, should we give like scholarship to the son of this Malay businessman? They'll go damn pissed off, right? Especially when, for example, a Chinese middle class family cannot access that scholarship.
Yeah.
So I think Malaysians, the majority, are very reasonable, right? So as politicians, we have years of data already. What works, what don't. And when we already know what works and what don't, we still insist on maintaining the same system, then we are not just failing Malaysians, you're failing the Malays as well, right? One simple example. Same policy implemented for the past decades. However, if you look in Sabah, decades after independence, decades after being part of Malaysia, after part of this NEP policy, still a quarter of Bumiputra Sabahans live below poverty line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a clear failure, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, if it's a lot more targeted, a fusion between needs-based and looking at institutions like Mara, Felda, Felkra, which target specifically to those who generally need it, I think that's the best balance to move forward. So my answer to this, the federal constitution intentionally makes it slightly more vague because it acknowledges the flexibility of Malaysian society and the need to focus a lot more on policy changes and reforms which will turbocharge us forward. And I think that's the basis which we need to start on. The point in which the discussion becomes, because I'm born into a different race and religion, therefore I'm automatically superior than you, I think that's inherently racist, and that will make Malaysia go down a very dangerous path. However, if the discussion between Malay, Chinese, Indian, Iban, Kadazans start at a pace in which I understand that you are disadvantaged because of specific issues which happened, and as a consequence, education is the best way for you to climb up.
Yep.
As an equalizer, I will support you no matter who you are, where you are from, which race and religion you are at. I think that's a good starting point, because that's when we realize pure meritocracy starts not by looking at equal outcomes, but equal opportunities.
Confirm.
So that's the basis of a functioning multiracial moderate Malaysia.
Yeah, that's why he's the breaking records in debate club. I'm sold.
I think the challenge is, right, the government in power, regardless of whatever it is, has no incentive to change it.
Yeah.
It is in their incentive to keep it there, because that's where the votes are, right? I think that's fairly plain and simple. Do you feel the rakyat will continue voting for a government if they decide to get rid of inherent Bumi rights, but operate on a more meritocracy-driven system? Do you think the rakyat will still vote for this government?
I believe if it is focused on a public policy reform and a clear and concise explanation as to why we need to depart from the past, the rakyat will understand. And it's nothing new, right? I mean, there have been very sensitive changes which took place, but when it is explained well, the public knows, that's when the rakyat will stick with us. But the point in which it seemed to be prejudicial, only meant to support a particular elite group, that's when people will reject it very quickly. I'll show some very simple examples, which is very unique. Sex education. You know, data science, very clear. You need to teach it. You need to teach it clearly. Start young so that in the end you can stop transmission of HIV and AIDS. You can stop abuses, pedophilia, blah, 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 blah.
Premarital pregnancies,
Very simple. Data.
Super simple. Very clear.
Universal.
Yeah.
However, I remember in 2017 when I started writing about it, and I did a Twitter thread, and obviously Twitter thread is the worst way to summarize things. So they just took one of the tweets,
took it out of context.
and said that Saddiq will give free condoms to everyone, which, mind you, an issue of data and science is not a bad policy.
Not a bad thing. So
it's a
but
great
they-
policy.
For the record, yes.
But they took that part and said, Saddiq's going to incentivize free sex to everyone, this and that. So I'm like, so I thought it was just, maybe this is just UMNO people, And then to my surprise, even among, then I was part of Bersatu, even among party leaders, top party leaders in Bersatu, they said, I've humiliated the party, that now the party will lose Malay support. So I said, no, you're thinking down this line because people don't understand and you're not explaining it.
Yeah.
Right? Immediately you prejudge an argument and an idea because of stigma, which is based on, which is not based on facts. But to my surprise, this is the weird part, which I picked up very quickly in Malay politics in particular. When I was saying this, and this was during a meeting where I was being reprimanded, at that point in time, Dr. Mahathir was not chairing the meeting. He was not in yet.
Okay.
And he's a doctor. So on this part, he's actually quite open-minded. And the wife in particular, Tun Siti, is a big fan of reforming sex education. So just everyone was attacking me, saying I'm really bad. And then suddenly when Dr. Mahathir enters, and he opens his speech by saying, I don't understand why Malays, when they think about sex education, they just think about sex, without looking at the medical angle and how awareness education will be better. Immediately, the guys who were saying that I'm a bloody traitor, that I don't know, I'm going to...
boss.
Side betul.
Yeah. So I was like, what? This is like a less than 5-minute transition in belief, So that's what I realized, it's really weird. So in the end, really, there just must be moral courage.
Correct.
When you are in a position of power, obviously you have to pick your battles. So you can't immediately open up the battle on all the sensitive issues at once, because then you are doing a lot more harm to a lot of the issues which you can actually win on.
Yeah.
So pick your battles, but when you pick it up, important ones, fight it through no matter how tough it gets, and make the structural changes. Because structural changes via education creates a generation and multi-generations which will embrace multiracialism, moderation, diversity, and that will move Malaysia forward, not just during one political term, but for terms to come. Empower young voters who are a lot more multiracial and open-minded, because that will empower generations to come. So in the end, I'm always a fan of public policy changes, because while let's say I engage with someone who is a true like super Malay, believes my race is very important, how do I convince him or her? Do I just say, hey, bro, actually I'm going to strip away all your rights. It doesn't matter, you are racist. You're going to lose that person, you're going to lose his family, you're going to lose his children.
Yeah.
Instead, you say, actually, this policy does more harm to you, your family, our future generations together. And this is why, look at this data. And now, as a consequence, it's time for us to depart. How are we going to do it? This is the solution, A, B, C. It helps all Malaysians. As a consequence, it will help you
You're gonna
and your children.
give people the confidence that, although, because their past thinking is different, right? And then what they could be thinking is different, but you just need to guide them through it. I think it's like educating them, showing them the steps.
It's a safe feeling,
Yeah, I think maybe that's it. It's also the messaging, right? So if you're going to remove Bumi rights, I think it's kind of like you kind of need to angle it in the sense that, no, actually this is detrimental to you versus
it will
making
help
better.
you. It will help us as a nation.
Maybe it's an explanation thing.
Communication is tough.
So that's why I keep on saying, right? So see, you don't see people, even among all parties, you don't see anyone challenging Article 153, 160, the importance of Malay language, etc. What people confront and get pissed off about is when it helps a particular elite community and not those who are genuinely in need. Where, for example, the recent discussion of suddenly allocating 51% of equity.
I was going to bring that up as well.
Towards freight forwarders, right? I mean, really, can you tell me how will that help? I mean, the petani, the nelayans, the small traders, right? So, and they disguise that under Bumi rights. BS, right? I mean, you really want to argue about Bumi right? Help those who are genuinely poor, the orang asli who need it.
Dude, they don't even
The
talk
Sabah
about
Sarawakians
stock,
who
bro.
need it. I mean, basic things, right? So again, majority of Malaysians understand the flexibility of the constitution and they are reasonable minded, right? I mean, if really it's about helping a poor Chinese family who needs help, even a Malay family will be fine.
Yeah, everybody.
Vice versa.
Everybody
so
fine.
Really, the premise must be on that instead of us trying to silat our way out by justifying a ridiculous public policy which will only entrench the elite, family members, cronies, at the expense of the population at large.
I think that was just a way to like, just
That was very blatant. There's no way to
yeah,
punch your way out of
that guy is just ayo.
He's smoking
Which is
weed or
tragic,
something.
which is really. I think if he smokes weed, he wouldn't say that lah. So I think
Because
it's
clarity already, bro.
So that part actually is quite it's tragic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see a way.
Actually, speaking of weed, since you talked about weed,
okay.
right? I know there is this. I know you're smiling, bro. You smile.
You know what's coming.
You know.
And you might as well promote it here as well, in the sense that like I know that it's a multi-billion dollar business that Malaysia can totally capitalize on. There's hemp. There's like what bulletproof vests made out of hemp.
Exactly.
Like
It's
easily.
industrial hemp. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating.
Chinese military have already taken that
Yeah.
project up.
But-
China was very anti-drugs.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's just that people have this problem distinguishing between the THC and the DMT part. So
CBD.
Yeah. So it's kind of like they think every type of form of the greens, right,
It's bad.
is going to make them. But then there's a lot.
Oh, that's your reaction.
But there's a lot more to it, right? Do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure, I'll go step by step, right? I think industrial hemp is clear cut. We must allow, right? I mean, as you said, it allows for you to create cosmetics. It allows you to
So
create
many uses.
many different products, including, as you said,
Bulletproof vests.
bulletproof vest, your clothing, a replacement for cotton, many things.
Yes.
That's the low-hanging fruit. Absolutely no problem to allow. Then comes medical cannabis.
Yes.
Medical cannabis, slightly more controversial. The example is CBD oil and some level of THC, but very minimal. That one, I mean, again, follow the data and science, right? A lot of studies, more than 30 to 40 countries have already legalized medical cannabis.
Yes.
And not even one country after legalization made a U-turn after.
Exactly.
Right.
Which means that even after changing governments many times, they know that it's good, it should be allowed. Why? Because there are many, especially now at a time where mental health issues is even more prominent, CBD oil helps, right? And that's where you see children who suffer from epilepsy or adults who suffer from early Alzheimer's or those who want a specific treatment of pain relief utilize the CBD
At
oil.
least they have access to it.
Yeah, but in Malaysia, if
don't
you
have
use
access.
CBD oil, immediately you are a criminal,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
if you have a specific amount, immediately you can be sent to the gallows and get killed. I mean, to that extent, right? And the reason I feel very passionate about championing, okay, I met a group of parents, and they're saying that they are forced between two choices, either to become a good parent who has been advised to use CBD oil to treat their kid, or
Bad.
I'm going to say bad, but like someone who doesn't want to maximize the options which have been given, just so that he or she could stay within the legal sphere. And that's troubling, right? I do not want to see anyone go through.
Imagine you have to make that moral decision.
Exactly. So I think medical cannabis must be allowed. I mean, come on, just follow the data and science, do the proper studies, get the studies done abroad, apply it in Malaysia. I believe the results will be the same because it's quite universal.
Yes.
And then after that, there's a more recreational side, but I'm not allowed to talk about that, so let's talk about this one first, to focus on it.
What do you think is the hump though? Like what do you think is the wall?
There's a great stigma whenever you hear, especially when you call it marijuana. That's why I call it medical cannabis. There's the stigma is huge. While in reality, I mean, it's not just in Malaysia, it's across the world.
Yeah.
I mean, Thailand, our neighbor, has started. And many more countries in Southeast Asia are pursuing this path. If anything, Malaysia must have first mover advantage.
That's right.
Go in first, repackage, export. And the export market is a multi-billion dollar market. California, per quarter, not even a year, made about 300
Bro, Mike Tyson is
300 million
rolling.
US dollars.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's just one state. Imagine what Malaysia can do. Mind you, I think when it comes to commodities, plantations, Malaysia is way ahead because we have amazing
land.
Yeah, we have amazing soil.
Yeah.
We have the land. Labor is very affordable.
Yeah.
Cost
Sun.
is very low.
Katulistiwa, bro.
That's why when it comes to durians, I mean, other countries can try to bloody plant it,
cannot.
but
Not
they
even
will
close.
never beat us, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Palm oil and many other examples. So really, this is the low-hanging fruit. So two-pronged. One is medical purposes, help those parents, children, elderlies who need it. And it's not like they will just suddenly take it. It will be a prescription or a doctor will say that it's needed. So there's a proper process driven by data and science, and let science win, not sentiment, not emotions. So that's one side. Second part, the industrial side of things, right? If anything, Malaysia needs a larger tax base. If we could regulate instead of just banning it when it goes
Yeah, you can
underground.
get money from it, man.
Right? When you go underground, that's where THC content is uncontrollable. They add many other
It's
synthetic
regulation,
drugs.
isn't it? Yeah.
And it gets much worse. But when it's fully regulated, That's when you get the proper amount, the proper drops, the proper content, and then it will be used for the proper reasonings. And that's where even money, in terms of creating these new industries, will go for Malaysians in the end, instead of going to the
It
black
benefits
market.
us in the end.
So really, we need to start taking the approach of harm reduction instead of us taking the more emotive approach by just saying, no, there will be a backlash, we cannot talk about it, therefore let's move away. So that's where, again, as a fan of bipartisanship, instead of me doing it alone, despite being in opposition, I reached out to many in government, and just this morning, we announced another historic bipartisan committee, which specifically looks into regulating medical cannabis and ketom. So both, and this will be made up of 9 MPs from different parties, government, opposition, independent, coming together to strike a way forward.
I was actually listening to the podcast last night. I remember you mentioning that when you were minister at the time, I think Mahathir was also very close to
Approving it.
approving it, right? Because you brought him Thailand or
Not
something.
just very
Right?
close.
You brought it back.
Thailand or something.
I
right?
kid you not, that's Phuket. That man is one of a kind. Now, to be fair to him, if you convince him on something, he may have his rigid views.
Yeah.
But when you convince him on something, he will support all the way. So during the Pakatan Harapan cabinet, we already approved it.
Yeah.
We approved it, and there's even land carved out in Kedah. But it will be
cool.
managed by government for research purposes.
Holy,
first.
what in Kedah
For
all prepared?
Yeah,
Already, bro.
for medical cannabis. So industrial hemp is one. That is for medical cannabis because you have to import the seeds from abroad, plant it, and then get the product, complete the
Maintain.
research, and then make the amendment to
Yeah.
the Dangerous Drugs Act to preclude cannabis from a specific list. So it's a very simple and clear process, but we want to follow the data and science. That's all allowed. And the final coordination meeting, which will lead to the huge announcement, was supposed to be 1 or 2 days after Sheraton. And that was damn frustrating because I was coordinating.
I see.
I'm like, we were so close. And mind you, this will be a landmark improvement in which we will signal to the world that Malaysia is innovative enough to try and is driven by data and science, and policy is driven by data and science. And I'm telling you, the number of foreign investors who are very interested, local players who are very interested, a lot, right? Because they know that this is a cash crop, and they also know that the social utility behind it for medical purposes is great, not just in Malaysia, but for export purposes abroad.
Not gonna lie, I think Kedah would have been a hot spot for tourism after that too.
Not
Yeah,
gonna
of
lie.
course.
Yeah.
So
I think it would
that's,
have boomed in says.com.
Bro. You will see people instead of Kedah going to Thailand come to Kedah.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
that's what they'll be mad. Actually, okay. So I know it's a very sensitive topic, right? But when that happened, right, and you were a minister,
Yep.
and then the announcement came. Do you know why? Do you know why, or can you say why? You cannot say why.
I was definitely caught off guard that my party decided to pursue that path.
Right.
They were always chatters. Then, before Sheraton. And I did inform my coalition partners about it because when I was approached, I remember then it was at Tan Sri Muhyiddin's house. There were a few other ministers there, and I was asked to sign an SD. But then I mentioned, this SD is just in support of the Prime Minister.
Sorry, what's an SD?
Statutory declaration.
Okay.
Which is like legally binding commitment.
Okay.
So then I'm like, okay, but supporting the Prime Minister, but I don't see any of our partners not supporting the Prime Minister. So government is stable. So I didn't understand. And that's when they say, actually this is for us to form this Malay-Muslim government. It will be called Pakatan Nationals. I'm like, huh? What? And then I obviously opposed it. I opposed it even 2 or 3 weeks before the meeting, which I said, this is bad. It's bad for democracy. You don't change government in the middle of a term, not out of conscionable reason, but because of like you want to get into power and have more ministerial positions. So I said enough is enough, and that's wrong, and I didn't agree. After that, immediately I was precluded from all these top secret meetings till a point that during the final days, Supreme Council meeting where the decision was supposed to be made, I was only informed that the meeting was moved earlier, like during the meeting.
Oh, wow.
It was really bad, and thank God I think they knew I was supposed to be in either Kelantan or Terengganu. I had a scheduled flight. Thank God, I don't know what happened, but something told me to not go. So I was at home, and suddenly when I heard, hey, there is this meeting, and my house was very near to the office, I rushed. I didn't shower that day. There's a secret. I rushed because I knew what was going. I mean, at that point I already could feel what was going to happen.
Oh man.
And I was trying my best to stop it. However, I think out of 30 plus Supreme Council members, only 6 opposed it, and I was one of them. And we were clearly outvoted. And I remember then I was really unhappy, sad, because this was a party which I helped co-found it as well. And it was my very first party.
Yeah.
Right? And it's never easy. I mean, the threats which me, my family, colleagues, those around me faced for me picking that choice to build up a party, which is a party from nothing to then become a party which now gave birth to 2 prime ministers. I mean, it's really hard work, and we put our hearts into it, and we want this party to reform Malaysia, but in the end, it became the complete opposite. So when that happened, obviously, I did tell my leaders that I disagree with what happened, and I will not support it. And that's why after that, when they asked me to sign the SD, Statutory Declaration, to support this move, I did not, and will not, and will never. And even when there were threats to me, whether it's about my legal case, whether it's via office, for me to accept GLC positions, to accept being a minister, it will all be rejected. It is futile because I believe it's better to bloody die than live a shameless life without any principles. So I don't regret it at all. So despite now, so obviously I lost my ministerial position. I got kicked out. I got expelled from the party which I helped co-founded.
Yeah.
I'm only an independent. I'm not even giving my new party's approval.
Yes.
Not just
It's
me,
been
my
a year.
family. Everyone around me have been threatened in many different ways. But I have no regrets whatsoever because I can sleep peaceful nights. I cannot imagine how I would feel if I'm there now, knowing that I've betrayed the people's mandate, sold my principles for power and money. That's an unforgivable act.
You would be sleeping in Egyptian bed sheets because you'd be on the board of a GLC.
Or probably correct.
But then again, right? I know the feeling. Like you can't be sleep. There's this unrest.
Yeah.
There's an unrest.
Talking about the Sheraton incident, right? So when PH was dissolved, right, a lot of people like us, we really felt like we lost hope because we really we took the finger, Instagram that stuff, and then suddenly all that
We
effort
were
just
distraught. Bro.
Thanos, we had our own Thanos incident as well, so
Yeah, bro.
That's true.
what's up, man? I mean, what happened? How you guys felt, and
If anything, keep that feeling of apathy, desperation, anger closely. And remember that same feeling when you go to the ballot box in next election. What those who engineered Sheraton move want you to do is for you to feel hopeless and give up.
Yeah.
Because when you don't turn up, when you do not care, when you feel hopeless, they will forever be in power and they will perpetuate the same system which corrupts our moral integrity. However, what they fear the most is that you actually care
And you still care.
and you keep on pushing forward because they know then you are the dagger which will kill them. Right? I mean, not literally, please.
yes.
In case anyone-
We have to have context here.
Yeah.
Context is very important.
Yeah, so that's why I believe a maturing democracy takes time and it's never easy. Right? Some will feel a sense of hopelessness, but who would have expected that there would be a change in government last election to the point that now all parties, all MPs are scared.
Yeah.
And that's good. Changes always take slightly more time, especially a country like Malaysia, which is still a nascent democracy. But we get stronger after each time. And we learn from the past and we keep on charting a new way forward. So despite what has happened, I actually think that Malaysia will become stronger after this.
Oh, we coming for you. Wait.
Wow.
Oh, wait,
Wow.
wait, what's up? Wait, bro. We're on the way.
I almost think to be a politician, you need a certain degree of optimism.
He's always optimistic. That's what he always says in all his videos.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very optimistic.
No, but the reason why I am optimistic, see, if you're optimistic because of the leaders and the parties which exist, then there's something wrong. But when you gauge the public's reaction, public's awareness, the discussion which I have with friends, family members, my voters in my constituency, that's where you realize that the hope in Malaysia doesn't lie in the hands of people like me who's in power or in opposition who's an elected representative, but truly lies in the hands of fellow Malaysians who are professionals, technocrats, Nalayans, Petanis who are doing their work, who know what's going on, who have a very clear vision of what they want of Malaysia. And whoever is in power will have to serve them. So I'm optimistic because in the end, the one who controls democracy are voters, and our voters now more than ever are very much mature.
Bro, the voters love you, bro.
Unless it's a blackout lah.
Let's just say,
then I don't know lah.
Water cut in
let's
ice.
just say,
Oh,
like,
that's the water.
So-
I don't know.
That's where all of us will have to guard the ballot box in
Yeah,
our lives.
bro.
Lah.
you know why the voters love you? Because I know KJ is like daddy, but you're honey for the people. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? Like,
That was very
Damn,
quick.
son.
That was a very quick decision.
Analogy is
no,
shit, bro.
Because there was one time like you were in the debate in the parliament, and then you just say "Kita Lawan," you know. Then that clip went viral, and everybody just went Lawan, Lawan, Lawan. That video really showed me that the people my age and people lower are really keeping track in the politics, man.
I just want to point out,
You
right?
know?
Like in my whole life, I'm never interested in politics. I never even want to think about it because I always think,
Sorry.
the Star is probably gonna write something that's biased. New Straits Times probably control, you know, all this that thing. Then I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago. Pogi was like, "Hey, we got Syed Saddiq on the podcast, bro." I like, "Oh no, I have to really watch a lot of political shit, bro."
We can't go into this knowing nothing.
Then you know I was having a conversation with my dad, right? Then my dad was like, "You don't make a fool out of yourself." You know? Like, oh my god, lah, dad. So I asked so many people. I started watching so many videos, right? But I don't really feel patriotism as much. I just feel like, okay, lah. I mean, you don't really get to choose where you're born, so why should we be proud, right? I'm just like, okay, I mean, I'm happy, lah, right? But then when I saw that video, right, when you say Lawan, right,
Bro.
I had.
It's
There was a fire, you know. And then I spoke to Nalina after that. And then I'm just like, my goodness, maybe there is something, you know. And then, I don't know, after I just watched so many podcasts with you, even the sales thing where you're like, would you rather do this or that? I'm just like, wow, damn, man, you have to do a lot, bro. But my question goes back to, if someone like me, like before this,
Yep.
was not interested in politics, and there's so many types of venues where you can go, right? How do you kind of make your own image of what is there to follow? What is your belief? Because with so many news outlets, right? Who do you know which to follow?
It is my job to win them over by proving that there is something worth fighting for. The biggest enemy to Malaysia's progress is apathy and the feeling of hopelessness. Because I don't think Malaysia will become a failed state, but Malaysia will become a state which is controlled by complacency and mediocrity. And based on my conversations with many Malaysians, we want Malaysia to be a developed country. We want Malaysia to be
for sure.
a success story of multiracialism. We want Malaysia to become a truly unified, prosperous, moderate country, right? So not a country trapped in mediocrity. And for that, it is my responsibility then, and many of those who aspire to move Malaysia forward, to show that there is a reason and a purpose in us fighting this good fight, no matter how painful and no matter how long it takes. And I'm privileged. I'm here today because of I was born in Malaysia, right? I think in another country it'd be quite tough. My father was a construction worker, commuting from Johor to Singapore every single day, doing many different odd jobs. Mom is a civil servant, just retired as a teacher before.
Wow.
And I mean, really, I feel very happy because when I accessed public education there, it was fully public education. I had the greatest of teachers. I had the best of friends. When I got good grades and I got into a military school, military college, that was the most diverse and multiracial boarding school in Malaysia. And that really made me who I am today, introduced me to debating. And despite the fact that there are many other great debaters abroad, but it was in Malaysia through a public university which gave me the opportunity to learn and the flexibility to explore, which made me who I am today. And it is all of that Malaysian, it is small decisions which in the end made me who I am today. And while I'm privileged to learn all of that, it is then my duty to open up the doors for many others.
For sure.
And if I fail, instead of opening up 50 doors, I only get to open 5, it's okay, I've opened up 5 doors. Then the next generation open up another 5. The point is we cannot be quickly disheartened just because we don't get to achieve everything now, but we should feel disheartened if we feel that we're taking Malaysia backwards. So now it is my duty and many others who are in politics, who want to become change makers, to show that Malaysia is a blessed land and it is our duty to push Malaysia forward.
Speaking about pushing Malaysia forward, right? So, you know, in the few years ago, we reinstated the minimum wages.
Yeah.
All right, which I felt is still a little bit too low, but that's just
It
me.
is.
It is. Thank you. All right. So, what are the plans? How do you see that we can increase the wages in Malaysia and the standard of living? Because all the costs are going up.
I don't think we need to increase the standard of living, bro. We increased the minimum wage, bro.
Increase the minimum wage.
bro.
Minimum wage. You know, even not the standard of living. Like the standard of living is up, but
Yeah.
the amount of cash flow the society is getting is not increasing, rather decreasing.
Yeah.
You know, how can we catch up with our neighboring countries? You know, when I was like 10, 15 years ago, USD was like 1 to 3, and then now I don't even.
Bro, don't you say you just see Singapore?
Yeah, bro. Started off 1-to-1.
We were 1-to-1, you know. So these are just pretty important issues that. Also, sometimes that is all you need. That's the answer you need to know.
It's not even just the minimum wage, right? Like employers are proud to promote a 3,000 ringgit salary, expecting, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years experience. They're proud to showcase that.
And this is why, that's why if you ask me whether a change in government or personality will suddenly turbocharge Malaysia forward, a lot of Malaysians will be quite disappointed. The reality is you need to overhaul the way we do business in Putrajaya, the way how we structure economy, and only then we can turbocharge Malaysia forward.
Hence the focus on policies.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Because I'll show one simple example. When I was part of cabinet, and I've said this on record, off record, and people know it to the point that I'm labelled almost as a socialist, which I am not. It's just that I believe that we need to have responsible capitalism. So I pushed for minimum wage to be increased, right? Back then it was only 900. After 1 year and a half, it became 1,200 ringgit.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is a lot. 1,002. If you live on 1,002 in KL, you can survive with a family. Hats off, man, because the majority can't, right? But to some, even at 300 ringgit, oh no, this is too much. You will overburden employers. I'm like, look, okay, first numbers never lie, especially when it comes to data. Look at GDP per salary ratio, right? By then you already know Malaysia has one of the lowest. That means while GDP growth is great, but salary increment is ridiculously slow in comparison even to countries like Singapore and even our regional peers. Yeah. The fact that even Jakarta could have a higher minimum wage than us says
Jakarta is a higher minimum
very
wage.
Negative. Yep. Also, you have to convert
tragic,
it,
bro.
Right? So it's quite tragic. So in Malaysia, I think on this path we need to have clarity and moral courage to push it forward. And this is not just in government; it's in opposition as well. That's why in opposition, for example, when I've been pushing for a more progressive taxation system, and it's never popular to talk about tax.
Yeah.
But that's the reality you have to face. Right? You want to run all these populist policies, well, the money come from? They will come from the trees, is it? So you have to come up with a public policy reform and a fair taxation model for it to work, right? So okay, fine, you don't want to have GSTs, white consumption tax, then you need to have a more progressive taxation policy. For example, Malaysia went through COVID. 1 million people lost their jobs, 500,000 SMEs went bust, 500,000 middle-class Malaysians moved into the B40 category. But while all of this is taking place, the top 50 richest families, not families, individuals, net wealth increased by 14%. 14% is in the billions of ringgit.
Yep.
This is only one of the 50 families. And some select companies had their revenue not just like quadrupled, but like 11 time increase, 20 time increase. Amazing. And I'm not against it. We shouldn't be envious by saying, oh my god, it's all evil. No, they are Malaysian companies and we should celebrate. But in a context of responsible capitalism, in any country, even developed countries have done it. In the UK, they're talking about wealth tax, right? And they also have their own form of, many forms of capital gains tax, inheritance tax, blah, blah, blah. Malaysia, even when we discuss about windfall tax, and windfall tax, not that we're going to take away all your money, times 20. It's just a portion.
Yeah.
And that will go to government to deal with COVID relief measures so that the economy can open up and you can thrive again, right? So it's just that it's basic responsibility. But then even those in government and opposition at first, this is really bad, they will run away from Malaysia. I'm like, where are they going to go? Malaysia provides the cheapest labour, subsidised electricity and gas. You know, cost of living is ridiculously low, especially when it comes to cheap labour.
Yeah.
They love cheap labour. It's an addiction for these companies, right? And exploit it. And yet suddenly we're so scared because suddenly maybe out of 100 billion, now they will only get 99 billion. Oh, pity them. I mean, seriously, right? So on this measure, I actually think there must be more moral courage from lawmakers via bipartisanship to champion it. Because if not, you want to talk about increasing minimum wage, man, you'll hear the same 101 excuses. The person who recently won the Nobel laureate has successfully proven that an increase in minimum wage doesn't hurt locals, doesn't hurt the ability of them to get a job, doesn't hurt the job market. If anything, it helps. Because when there's greater
helps.
circulation of money, not centralized in the hands of the few,
Yeah.
that's when small, medium enterprises grow,
Can grow.
businesses grow, because purchasing power gets better. It's a very simple concept. You give money to the poor and the middle class, they're more likely to spend in the country than those who are rich will save it or put in
go
an
to-
offshore account. You saw
Yeah,
the Pandora Papers, billions going missing. I mean, seriously. So all of this is based on public policy reforms and the demand and the political will to overhaul Malaysia instead of making cosmetic changes when there's a change in government.
Sounds to us we have a lot of politics to overhaul. Politics lawmaker to overhaul.
policies,
Of course.
of
Sorry,
policies.
policies.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we have
Policies.
some time, man.
Yeah, it's policies.
Usually, how long does a policy takes to be overhauled?
If you have a supportive, united government, it can be done very quickly. But when it's divided, when there are a lot of those who are still bought over by private interest, and in Malaysia, we don't have a political funding act. So bro, Saddiq, let's say today you're a taiko. They say, hey, Saddiq, I find you 500 million, that's name lah, hypothetically. 500 million ringgit. You contest, but when you win, remember, help me, that's legal. Even if that 500 million goes to me directly. Legal, got no political funding act. That's a problem. Remember the 130 million ringgit found in the two luxurious condominiums in Pavilion, which belonged to
Yep.
the former Prime Minister?
Yes.
He got the money back.
Huh?
Oh,
Wait,
you-
serious?
You haven't followed the news. He got the money back, bro. He got the money back because he said, no, it's in this private place, but it belongs to the party. Okay, that's just when they got all the handbags, the jewelries, the necklace, that's all not included. What's the argument I'm trying to make? See, that's why I always believe in reforms, and reforms shouldn't be punitive to one person and shouldn't just be about one person.
Yeah.
Actually, reforms in Malaysia is beyond Datuk Sri Najib, it's beyond to Dr. Mahathir, it's beyond all prime ministers. If you don't have a political funding act, even if a change of 10 prime ministers, in the end, they all have to play the same game.
Yeah, bro. It's really stuck. They're stuck.
So reforming in the US, for an example, not to say that they're the bastions of political funding or the best model to go to, but an example, you are Michael Bloomberg, you can give Obama 1 billion ringgit, no problem, but everything is accounted, everything is audited for till the point that you as a voter can know that every month or every week,
Where is it going?
that's the amount of money which Obama is spending on his private trips on a private
Yeah.
jet. Even Bernie Sanders, the socialist, in the end travelled on a private jet because he saved a lot more time campaigning. But there is transparency, there is
Yes.
accountability.
Correct.
Then when, for an example, a particular billionaire gives money, will that billionaire get favors? No, right? The system clearly limits the power of the president. The president can't just say, bro, kita kawan, I give you 1 billion contract. Cannot, right? Because civil service decides. And that should be the way in Malaysia.
It's transparency.
That's why when I was part of the Ministry of Youth and Sports, I was never afraid, even though I know when I left government, I knew they were going to come for my head. They will go every single bloody document which I've signed to see if even an ounce of abuse. I wasn't scared because in KBS, I didn't get involved at all. Right? So that's why the only thing they could come after me was political funding of party funds prior to election before I even become an MP. Because in KBS, despite having billions of ringgit of allocations, everything I said, no, even though they are my friends, they are family members, I don't care, do open tender. And open tender, there are so many different ministry reps run by civil service, very hard to subvert. Let them run it.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I'm not interested to give it to my friends or to my family members. And I want to make it very clear that in
Very
the end,
fair.
we want to build a system which is truly transparent and independent and one which moves beyond political personalities. That even if there's a change of 5 ministers in that ministry, the
still
system
retain.
is
That's
strong
right.
enough
Yeah.
so that it will build Malaysia forward.
I think we Malaysia have to say huge thanks to all of you guys for doing a really good job. Personally, for us, we have not been following politics until the recent months.
Well, until
only,
last night.
Until last night, John.
and the last 3 weeks have been pretty heavy, bro.
Pretty heavy lah. But listening from Nalina, listening from yourself, it just gives us more fuel to actually try to make Malaysia a better place. And
I can tell Jack's Harun.
can't wait to do that. So, because we are running low of time already, I understand you have prior engagement to do. I think we should do a part 2 podcast, definitely. Don't you think it's a good idea?
No problem.
It's in the camera. Okay.
Promise you, bro.
Promise, but because we have tons and
That was
tons
the
of
last one. Suddenly, got camera.
because black and white, but no, because we have a lot more questions that we really love to know, that the public would love to know as well. But I think we go to the last question, right? Promoting Malaysian tourism, Muar in particular.
Yes.
So what's the one thing everyone needs to try
In terms of makan lah.
in terms of makan at Muar?
What's the dish?
Asam pedas Muar.
I was saying,
You
what?
must asam pedas Muar. You have to try it.
Is it a specific? Is there a
It's a
restaurant?
dish. No, there are many restaurants
Oh,
there, but when you
okay.
ask for asam pedas Muar, they'll deliver it. There are many in many forms, but they are the best. people say there's Asam Pedas best in Penang, in Melaka, they are the liars. Prove them wrong. Debate me today. But really, in Muar, there's so much because Muar is like a heritage town. There's so much culture, history. It's a royal town of Johor. But I think for the past 2 years, we've really cleaned it up. A lot of the back alleys now have been cleaned up. A lot of graffiti, nicely placed graffiti, where it becomes a beautiful place of expression. And then a lot of small businesses and traders have moved into the very dirty alleys back then. So now, I mean, before COVID hit, there were so many Singaporeans who came down to Muar, so many Malaysians from parts of Penang coming down to Muar. So I cannot wait for the economy to fully reopen, so that I think Muar will benefit a lot from it. And I welcome for everyone to come to Muar. When you come to Muar, there are a few things which you must try. The Asam Pedas Muar, the mi Bandung Muar, Satay Pagi Muar. If you don't try these three, you will forever be locked in Muar, or I will lock you down in Muar until you finish it.
I think some of the girls would love to be locked with you lah.
And it's famous for furniture, so I'm not mistaken.
Asam Pedas
Furniture.
Muar, a lot of people don't know this. Muar is the third largest furniture export area in Asia.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
Malaysia trades 12 billion ringgit every year in furniture. And from Muar alone, I think there are about 10,000 containers of furniture being exported
You buy
every
new
month.
chairs.
Holy shit.
When you go to Malacca, when you go to Singapore, furniture is from Muar. Maybe this one made in Muar as well.
Probably.
Muar.
Bro, we
Really,
probably
in the
need to buy
US,
chairs.
all the furniture is Muar.
Muar.
And there's so much potential. Just like Muar is an industrial hub, furniture and nursery,
Asam Pedas
tourism hub, everything. So I'm very passionate about politics is politics, right? But in the end, what I love the most is grassroots politics. You
Right.
build a constituency, you change lives in front of your in
in
front of your eyes. And I want to see that happen at least in my constituency.
Okay lah.
Can't wait to try.
So round two Yamcha sessions is
Round
more
two.
lah.
Maybe I'll only agree if you come down to Muar.
Maybe
That sounds like a
you
plan, bro.
That sounds like
Oh
a
my
great
God.
plan.
Okay, that I can agree. So can I
Yes.
promote Muar sikit?
It's been a great session. So
Bro, thank you so
before
much.
we end the thing, right? I just want. Do you watch anime?